Mastering your spirit is one of the most profound abilities a person can cultivate. It is the capacity to stay composed when others lose their control, to walk in tranquility when chaos surrounds you, and to hold on to joy even when others try to take it away. Many people think strength is determined by how loudly they speak, how forcefully they argue, or how much they can assert their point. But true strength is not about overpowering others. It is about overpowering yourself when you master your spirit. You refuse to let external factors define your inner peace. You are no longer a slave to others' words, a captive to your emotions, or a victim of your past. Instead, you stand firm in the knowledge that no matter what happens around you, you remain unshaken, untroubled, and at peace. Think about the times when anger took control of you. Perhaps someone insulted you, and without thinking, you lashed out. Or maybe a colleague disrespected you, and your frustration led your response. In the moment, it may have seemed justified, but what was the result? Did it bring about peace? Did it solve anything, or did it only escalate the situation, leaving you emotionally drained? There is great strength in restraint. The world teaches us that if someone disrespects us, we should stand our ground. If someone offends us, we should make sure they know it. However, the reality is that reacting in anger never brings victory. It only feeds more anger. The enemy wants you to react because the moment you do, he gains control over you. He knows that if he can trigger your anger, he clouds your judgment. If he can provoke offense, he steals your focus. And if he gets you to act based on emotions, he leads you away from wisdom. Mastering your spirit is not about turning a blind eye to injustice or allowing others to take advantage of you. It is about understanding that you don't need to fight every battle that comes your way. Not every insult demands a response. Not every argument is worth your time. When you come to this realization, you begin to walk in a different kind of strength, the strength of self-control. People will say things to provoke you. They will test your patience, whether by design or not. But when you have control over your spirit, their words lose their power over you. You don't need to defend yourself because you know who you are. You don't need to prove anything because your identity is secure, and you don't need to seek vengeance because you trust that justice belongs to God. Think about the strongest people you know. They are not the ones who explode in anger, nor are they the ones who let emotions take the wheel. They are the ones who stand firm in the midst of conflict and remain calm. They are the ones who hear insults and remain unshaken. They are the ones who choose wisdom over impulsivity, peace over strife, and patience over frustration. That is true strength. Controlling your spirit also means knowing when to walk away. Some conflicts are not yours to fight. Some discussions are not worth engaging in. When you understand that arguing with someone who lacks wisdom only brings you down to their level, you will begin to choose peace over conflict. There are people who thrive on drama, who seek to create division, and who delight in pulling others into their negativity. But you don't have to engage. When you control your spirit, you refuse to give them the response they desire. Mastering your spirit is it takes practice, self-awareness, and the understanding that your emotions don't have to dominate you. You may feel anger, but you don't need to act on it. You may feel frustration, but you don't have to let it dictate your actions. There's a significant difference between feeling an emotion and letting it control you. Feelings are temporary, but the decisions made in the heat of those emotions can have long-lasting consequences. Imagine how much lighter your life would be if you stopped reacting to every offense. Picture the peace you'd feel if you no longer allowed others' words to affect you. The moment you choose to control your spirit, you reclaim the power others may have tried to take from you. You become unshakable, immovable, and steady. You become a person of wisdom, patience, and true strength. A person who has mastered their spirit is someone who cannot be manipulated, provoked, or distracted from their mission. They are not guided by emotions, but by wisdom. They do not live reactively, but with control. When others observe them, they notice something different, something rare. They witness a strength that is beyond this world. There are many burdens people carry, and one of the heaviest is the weight of offense, anger, and the demand for justice. When someone wrongs you, insults you, or betrays your trust, the natural impulse is to hold on to that pain. You replay the words, you imagine how you could have responded, and you let bitterness take root. But carrying that burden only harms you. It steals your peace, drains your energy, and traps you in a cycle of resentment. That is why the most powerful thing you can do is to give it to God. Letting go and giving it to God does not mean ignoring what happened. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt or acting as though it doesn't matter. It means you make the choice to place it in the hands of the one who sees all things and judges justly. It means trusting that God is your protector and that He will handle it. Far too often, people waste their time and energy fighting battles that were never meant for them to fight. They try to prove their worth to others. They strive to make people understand their side, and they seek revenge on those who have wronged them. In doing so, they only harm themselves. God didn't call you to carry the burden of every offense. He didn't create you to live in frustration over things beyond your control. He called you to walk in peace. Peace that comes from trusting in Him and leaving justice in His hands. Holding on to anger only builds up inside of you, poisoning your heart and clouding your judgment. But when you release it, when you truly let go, you experience a freedom that no amount of retaliation could ever bring. Many people wrestle with this because they believe that letting go means they're allowing the other person to win. They think that forgiveness means letting someone get away with what they did. But that's not true. Letting go doesn't mean approving of their actions. It means refusing to let them have power over you. It means trusting that God sees every wrong and that He will deal with it in His perfect time. Some wounds run deep, and some betrayals cut so profoundly that it feels impossible to move forward. But the longer you cling to the pain, the more control it has over you. You may think you are punishing the other person by holding on to resentment, but in reality, you're only punishing yourself. They move on with their life while you remain bound by anger. They sleep in peace while you lay awake replaying the past. But when you surrender it to God, when you say, Lord, I release this to you, you take back your peace. God is just. He is not blind to what has happened to you. He knows every word that was spoken, every action that was taken, and every moment you suffered. But He also knows that His plan for you is greater than the pain you've endured. He understands that if you remain in bitterness, you will never experience the fullness of what He has for you. That's why He asks you to let go, not because He doesn't care, but because He cares too much to let you remain trapped in a prison of offense. Letting go is a decision. It's not always easy, and it doesn't happen instantly. But every time you choose to release your pain to God, each time you refuse to carry the burden of anger again, you grow stronger. You start to realize that no person, no insult, no betrayal is worth losing your peace over. You understand that the battle is not yours, but His. People will continue to disappoint you. They will say things that wound. They will act in ways that offend. They will make choices that seem unfair. However, when you live in a place of surrender, none of it will have power over you. You will not be ruled by the desire for justice because you trust that justice belongs to God. You will not squander your energy fighting for yourself because you know He fights on your behalf. And you will not let the actions of others take away your joy because you understand that your peace comes from Him alone. Living in love is not always easy. The world tells us that love is for those who deserve it, for those who treat you well, for those who have earned your kindness. But true love, the kind that distinguishes you, the kind that mirrors God's heart, is not conditional on how others behave. It is a choice, a commitment, a lifestyle that chooses peace over conflict, grace over retaliation, and mercy over offense. Many people exist in a constant state of strife, always caught up in battles, always seeking ways to prove themselves, always holding grudges. They let anger simmer beneath the surface, and at the smallest provocation it erupts, poisoning their words, their actions, and their relationships. But the issue with strife is that it never leads to peace. It never provides resolution. It only creates more division, more stress, and more distance between people. There will always be chances to be offended. Someone will say something hurtful, someone will ignore you, criticize you, or treat you unfairly. But when you walk in love, you make a choice not to let these things dictate your reaction. You make a choice to rise above the urge to argue, to fight back, or to prove your point. Love is not weakness. It is not passivity. Love is the most powerful force in the world because it takes more strength to stay calm than to lash out. It takes more strength to be kind than to be harsh. It takes more strength to walk away from a conflict than to engage in one. Strife flourishes where love is absent. It feeds off pride, the need to be right, and the refusal to let go of past hurt. It traps people in cycles of conflict, never truly finding peace. But love breaks that cycle. Love quiets the argument before it even begins. Love chooses to forgive rather than cling to resentment. Love looks beyond the immediate offense and sees the bigger picture. Some people believe that by letting go of an offense, they are giving the other person the victory. They feel that if they don't fight back, they are being taken advantage of. But walking in love isn't about letting others walk over you. It's about deciding which battles are worth your energy. Not every argument needs your input, and not every insult deserves your reaction. When you understand this, you begin to realize that love isn't about losing. It's about winning in a way the world doesn't comprehend. People will expect you to respond as they would. They will anticipate anger, retaliation, and bitterness. But when you react with love, it catches them off guard. It halts them in their tracks, because love isn't what they are accustomed to. They are familiar with strife. They are used to defensiveness. They are used to people meeting them on their level. But love raises you higher. Love separates you. Love guards your peace. Walking in love doesn't mean turning a blind eye to reality. It doesn't mean letting yourself be mistreated or staying in toxic situations. It means protecting your heart from the poison of bitterness. It means quickly releasing offenses so they do not take root in your soul. It means not allowing others' actions to control your own. When you walk in love, you start to notice how much lighter life feels. You no longer carry the burden of anger. You're no longer weighed down by the need to prove yourself. You stop allowing others to steal your joy. Love is freedom. Love is strength. Love is a conscious decision to rise above the noise, above the drama, above the constant conflict that entraps so many. Strife may feel gratifying in the moment when you win an argument, prove someone wrong, or make your voice heard. It may offer short-term relief, but it never grants lasting peace. Only love can do that. When you walk in love, you stop wasting your time rehashing past offenses, reliving painful memories, or holding on to grudges. You live with an open heart, unburdened by resentment, no longer driven by the need to always be right, and free from fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. Some of life's greatest victories are not won through fighting harder, but through choosing not to fight at all. When you walk in love, you allow God to take care of what you cannot. You shift your focus from defending your point to safeguarding your peace. You stop striving and begin trusting. You live differently, and by doing so, you become a light in a world filled with darkness. The enemy is a master at creating distractions. He understands that he cannot take away what God has prepared for you, so he diverts your attention. He sends people, situations, and circumstances meant to pull you away from your purpose, stir up your emotions, and involve you in battles that aren't worth your time. If he can get you focused on the wrong things, he can prevent you from fully walking in what God has planned for you. Distractions don't always come in obvious forms. Sometimes they appear in subtle ways. A disagreement that changes your mood, a criticism that sticks in your mind, a disappointment that causes you to doubt your path. The enemy uses people to frustrate you and situations to drain your energy. If you're not vigilant, you'll find yourself fighting battles that weren't meant for you, reacting to things that don't deserve your attention, and wasting time on things with no eternal value. One of the most dangerous aspects of distraction is its urgency. The enemy makes it feel like you must react immediately, like you have to defend yourself, like you need to fix every problem right now. He wants you consumed with things that have no lasting significance, so you never focus on what truly matters. He knows that if he can keep your mind occupied with trivial disputes, insecurities, and temporary troubles, you won't have the clarity needed to pursue what God has placed in your heart. People will say things that offend you. Situations will come up that frustrate you. Unexpected challenges will arise just when you're about to step into something significant. Have you ever noticed that when you decide to grow spiritually, take a new step of faith, or live in obedience, opposition appears? That's not just a coincidence. The enemy notices your progress, and he will do everything he can to halt it. But he cannot stop what God has ordained, so he tries to stop you from believing in it. Recognizing the enemy's distractions means understanding that not everything requires your response. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every negative remark deserves your attention. Some people are sent into your life not to lift you up, but to drain you, test you, and pull you into unnecessary conflicts. The enemy knows your weaknesses and will use people and situations to exploit them. If you struggle with pride, he will send people to challenge your ego. If you wrestle with anger, he will send provocations. If you face doubt, he will create circumstances that make you question your path. But when you recognize what's happening, you regain control. You stop reacting to every situation that arises. You stop investing energy in things that don't align with your purpose. You learn to walk away from distractions rather than engaging with them. You become more discerning, more focused, and more intentional about where you place your attention. The enemy is not targeting your comfort, he is after your purpose. He doesn't care if you are happy or prosperous, as long as you are not walking in the calling God has for you. This is why his distractions often appear when you are on the verge of breakthrough, when you are about to enter into something greater, or when you are getting serious about your faith. He will send fear, he will send doubt, he will send unnecessary conflicts, all to divert your attention from what God is doing in your life. When you recognize this, you become unshakable. you start seeing distractions for what they truly are. Traps designed to steal your focus. You stop getting caught up in pointless arguments, stop allowing criticism to slow you down, and stop letting emotions dictate your actions. You redirect your energy from reacting to everything around you to staying focused on what God has called you to do. The greatest victories belong to those who know which battles to avoid. The enemy wants you to squander your energy on things that don't matter, so you'll have nothing left for what truly counts. But when you refuse to fall into his traps, when you keep your eyes on God, when you choose peace over chaos, faith over fear, and purpose over distraction, nothing can prevent you from walking in what has already been prepared for you. Praying for those who challenge you is not easy. Everything in your flesh wants to respond in anger, defend yourself, and hold on to the offense when someone disrespects you, mistreats you, or causes you pain. The last thing you feel like doing is praying for them, but that is exactly what you are called to do, not because they deserve it, not because they have earned your kindness, but because when you pray for them, you release yourself from the burden of bitterness. It takes strength to pray for someone who has wronged you. It takes humility to ask God to bless someone who has hurt you. But when you do, something shifts. The weight on your heart begins to lift. The anger inside of you begins to fade. The desire for revenge and resentment lose their grip. You see, prayer is not just about changing them. It's about changing you. It's about keeping your spirit pure, guarding your heart against the poison of unforgiveness, and keeping your focus on God instead of on those who tried to test you. The enemy will use people to provoke you, to get under your skin, to make you react. He knows that if he can make you angry, he can distract you. If he can make you bitter, he can harden your heart. If he can get you to dwell on the offense, he will keep you stuck. But when you choose to pray, instead of retaliate, you take away his control. You shift the battle from the physical realm to the spiritual realm, from your hands to God's hands. Praying for those who test you doesn't mean ignoring their wrongdoings. It doesn't mean tolerating their mistreatment. It means refusing to let their actions dictate your emotions. It means trusting that God sees everything and he is the one who will deliver justice. It means releasing the desire to take matters into your own hands and instead placing them into God's care. Some of the people who challenge you the most are the ones who are the most broken. Hurt people hurt others. Those who are filled with anger and bitterness spread it wherever they go. They attack others because they don't know peace themselves. They criticize because they are insecure. They lash out because they are carrying unresolved pain. When you understand this, you begin to see them differently. Instead of viewing them as enemies, you see them as people who need healing, people who need God's love just as much as you do. That doesn't mean their actions are excused. It doesn't mean you have to tolerate abuse or mistreatment, but it does mean you refuse to let their brokenness affect you. It means you refuse to let their negativity drag you down to their level. It means you choose to rise above, to walk in peace, to pray instead of holding on to resentment. When you pray for those who test you, you're not just being obedient, you are unlocking a new level of spiritual freedom. You're proving that your joy doesn't come from how others treat you, but from your relationship with God. You are showing that your peace is not contingent on people's actions, but on your trust in the Lord. You are walking in a kind of love that cannot be shaken, a love that reflects the very heart of God. There will always be people who challenge you. There will always be those who try to provoke you, speak against you, or bring you down. But how you respond is what truly defines you. When you choose prayer over offense, peace over retaliation, and trust in God's control over what you cannot handle, you rise above the distractions, above the noise, and above the temptation to fight battles that are not yours to fight. God doesn't ask you to pray for your enemies because it's easy. He asks you to do it because it holds power. It changes your perspective, strengthens your faith, aligns your heart with His, and in the process frees you from the burden of carrying offenses that were never meant to be yours to bear. Your worth is not shaped by the opinions of others. It is not defined by your past, your mistakes, or by what the world says about you. Your worth is found in God alone. He created you with intention, designed you in His image, and placed His hand upon your life. No person, no failure, no setback can alter that. But the enemy will do everything in his power to make you forget it. He will try to convince you that you are not enough, that you are unworthy, that you don't matter. He will use rejection, criticism, and comparison to make you doubt who you are. But when you know your worth in God, you no longer live shackled by the lies of the enemy. Many spend their lives trying to prove their value. They seek approval, chase validation, and work endlessly to gain acceptance. But no success, praise, or recognition can provide what only God can give. If your worth is based on others' opinions, it will rise and fall with them. If it is based on your achievements, it will crumble when you fall short. But when your worth is anchored in God, it is unshakable. It does not change with circumstances. It is not reliant on others' approval. It is secure in the truth of who He says you are. Knowing your worth in God means understanding that you were created with purpose. You are not here by chance. Before you were even born, God knew you. He formed you, set you apart, and placed His purpose inside you. The world may overlook you, people may reject you, but God never will. He calls you His own. He sees your value, even when others don't. He doesn't measure you by worldly standards. He sees your heart, your potential, your destiny. The enemy wants you to forget your worth, because when you do, you settle for less. You settle for relationships that don't honor you, for situations that diminish you, and for thoughts that tear you down. You accept lies instead of standing on the truth. But when you know who you are in God, you refuse to settle. You don't waste your energy chasing approval, because you already have the approval of the one who matters most. You do not shrink yourself to fit into places you were never meant to be. You do not allow others' words to define you, because you know that only God holds the final say over your life. The world tells you that your worth is determined by how you look, how much money you have, and how many people admire you. It tells you that you must compete, strive, and prove yourself. But God says you are already enough in Him. You don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to be anyone other than who He created you to be. His love for you is not based on what you do. It is based on who He is. When you truly understand your worth in God, you stop living in fear of rejection. You stop seeking validation from those who do not recognize your value. You stop letting others' opinions shake your confidence. You walk in boldness, in faith, with the certainty that you are chosen, loved, and called for a purpose. You no longer try to fit into places that were never meant for you, because you trust that God has something greater in store for you. The enemy will continue to try to convince you that you are not enough. He will remind you of your past, your failures, and your weaknesses. But every time those thoughts arise, you must stand firm on the truth of God's Word. You have to remind yourself that your worth is not defined by what you've done. It's defined by what Jesus has done for you. His sacrifice, His love, and His grace determine your value, not the opinions of others. When you walk in the confidence of who you are in God, you start seeing yourself in a new light. You stop comparing yourself to others, because you know God's plan for you is unique. You stop doubting yourself, because you trust He has equipped you for everything He has called you to do. You stop seeking your identity in others because your identity is already secure in Him. God does not make mistakes. You are not a mistake. You are not forgotten. You are not insignificant. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, created for a purpose and deeply loved by the one who formed you. Nothing and no one can take that away. Everything in this world is temporary. Your successes, your struggles, your possessions, and the opinions of others, it all fades away. Yet so many live as if this life is all there is. They chase after things that do not last. They pour their energy into what will eventually disappear. They strive for recognition, wealth, and approval, thinking these things will bring fulfillment, only to realize none of it truly satisfies. But when you live with an eternal perspective, everything changes. You begin to see beyond the moment. You stop living for what is temporary and start living for what is eternal. Living with an eternal perspective means realizing that this life is not the final destination. It is just the beginning. Every choice you make, every action you take, and every moment you spend is creating something far greater than what you see right now. The way you treat others, how you face challenges, and how you respond to trials, it all holds weight in the light of eternity. The enemy seeks to keep you focused on the temporary. He wants you to be consumed by worry, distractions, and things that hold no lasting value. But when you fix your gaze on what is eternal, you stop being swayed by the circumstances around you. You stop letting every hardship rob you of your peace. You stop pursuing things that hold no real importance. People often spend their lives amassing treasures on earth, believing that their security lies in what they possess, what they accomplish, or what others think of them. But none of these things will follow you beyond this life. The money, the material possessions, the fame, it all stays behind. What endures is the impact you make, the lives you touch, and the faith you live out. When you invest in eternal matters, you are building something that will never fade. You are planting seeds that will bear fruit long after you are gone. Living with an eternal perspective doesn't mean neglecting your present responsibilities. It doesn't mean ignoring your work, family, or goals. But it does mean keeping everything in its rightful place. It means not letting the fleeting things of this world overshadow what truly matters. It means asking yourself, am I living for myself, or am I living for something greater? It means making decisions that align with what is truly important, even when the world urges you to focus on something else. When you live with eternity in mind, you approach struggles in a new way. You begin to see trials not as barriers, but as chances to grow. You understand that every challenge is refining you, molding you, and strengthening your faith. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what is God teaching me through this? You realize that your struggles are not just for today, they are preparing you for something more significant. You also start seeing people in a different light. You stop viewing them as obstacles or inconveniences and begin recognizing them as souls with eternal worth. You begin treating others with more grace, patience, and kindness because you understand that every interaction holds meaning. The way you speak, the way you love, the way you serve, each of these has the power to point others towards something greater than what this world can offer. The enemy will attempt to make you forget eternity. He will try to keep you so absorbed in your problems, worries, and daily struggles that you lose sight of what truly matters. He will make you believe that your worth is tied to your achievements, that your purpose is found in what you gain, and that your life is only about what you can see. But when you remember that this world is not your true home, you stop being controlled by the things of this world. You cease fearing loss because you understand that your real treasure is in heaven. You stop chasing after fleeting things because your focus is on something much greater. Living with an eternal perspective brings you peace. It frees you from the pressure of trying to control everything, from worrying about things that won't matter in the long term. It helps you keep your priorities straight, spend your time wisely, and focus on what has lasting value. It reminds you that no matter what happens here, God's plan is greater, His promises are true, and His kingdom is eternal. When you live with an eternal perspective, you stop being shaken by temporary difficulties. You recognize distractions for what they truly are. You refuse to be consumed by negativity and choose to rise above. You don't allow anger, resentment, or the actions of others to control your spirit. Instead, you surrender everything to God, walking in love, praying for those who test you, and keeping your heart free from bitterness. You realize that your worth is not determined by the world, but by the one who created you. You refuse to settle for less than God's purpose for your life. The enemy will always attempt to pull you away from your calling using distractions, offenses, and lies to make you forget who you are. But when you recognize his schemes, you reclaim your power. You stop reacting to every offense, stop pursuing temporary things, and begin living with your eyes fixed on eternity. You trust that God is in control, that he sees every challenge, every injustice, and every sacrifice. You don't waste your energy on meaningless battles because you know your true reward is found in him. Life is too short to live weighed down by things that don't matter. Every moment is an opportunity to choose faith over fear, peace over chaos, and purpose over distraction. The way you live today impacts far more than just this life. It echoes into eternity. When you keep your focus on God, trust his plan, and refuse to be moved by the things of this world, nothing can shake you. You walk in confidence, strength, and the unshakable truth that you belong to God, and nothing can take that away. My dear friend, today I want to remind you that God is always in control, regardless of what you're going through. No matter how uncertain the future seems, no matter how many doors have been shut in front of you, God is still on his throne. He sees the entire journey, from beginning to end. He understands every detail of your life, every struggle, every disappointment, and every prayer that has gone unanswered. Yet despite everything, he remains sovereign. We often try to take charge of our lives. We make plans, set goals, and try to map out our future, believing that with enough effort, we can make things happen on our own. But then life surprises us. A door closes, an opportunity slips away, or the very thing we prayed for doesn't unfold the way we envisioned, and fear starts to creep in. Worry takes root in our hearts, and we begin to question God. We ask, Lord, why? Why did you allow this to happen? Why is this door closed when I believed it was the right one? But listen closely, God is still in control. That door that's closed, it's not a mistake. That missed opportunity, it's not a failure. It's all part of his divine plan. Our vision is limited. We can only see what's directly in front of us, but God sees everything. He understands what lies beyond that door, what dangers, heartaches, or struggles might await us. So in his mercy, he closes it. When God shuts a door, it's not to hurt you, it's to guide you. He's redirecting you to something greater, something better, beyond what you could ever imagine. But we often resist his plan. We become frustrated. We try to force open doors that were never meant to open. We attempt to control situations that are not ours to control. And that's when we feel exhausted, anxious, and overwhelmed. The Bible tells us, "Be still and know that I am God," Psalm 46:10. This is about releasing our need to control everything. It's about surrendering our dreams, our expectations, and our plans to him. The moment we stop striving, the moment we let go and stop forcing things to happen in our own strength, that's when we experience his peace. Worry won't change the outcome. Fear won't open the right doors. Anxiety won't provide clarity. But when we trust God, when we release our grip and say, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you, that's when everything starts falling into place. That's when he works in ways we never imagined. That's when he opens doors we didn't even knock on. So if everything feels out of control right now, remember this: God is still in control. Your circumstances may shift, but he remains unchanged. Your plans may fall apart, but his plans stand firm. Your heart may be filled with doubt, but he stays faithful. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 3:5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. This means that even when the way seems unclear, even when everything around you feels uncertain, even when life seems to be falling apart, God is still leading you. He is still at work. He is still paving the way. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to understand how things will unfold. All you need to do is trust. Trust that the same God who created the heavens and the earth is the same God who holds your life in his hand. Trust that he is working behind the scenes, preparing something greater than you could ever imagine. Trust that no matter how many doors close, no matter how many obstacles you face, he is guiding you toward the right one. God is never surprised by what happens in your life. He is not caught off guard by your struggles. He is not anxious about your future. He already has a plan to prosper you, to give you hope, and to lead you exactly where you are meant to be. So let go of fear, release worry, stop striving, and start trusting. The one who holds the universe in his hands is the same one who holds you, and he is in control. There are times in life when we stand before a door knocking, waiting, hoping it will open. We pray for opportunities, relationships, jobs, and dreams to come true, believing that with enough effort, enough persistence, it will happen. But then the door remains closed. No matter how much effort we put in, no matter how fervently we pray, it stays shut. And in that moment, we feel rejected, abandoned, and forgotten. We wonder why God would let something we longed for slip away. But what if I told you that a closed door is not a rejection, but a blessing? We often see closed doors as disappointments, as failures, as signs that God isn't answering our prayers. But the truth is, when God closes a door, it's an act of love, an act of protection, an act of divine redirection. He is not taking something from you. He is preparing something better. What you thought was a missed opportunity was God's way of steering you away from something that was never meant for you. That job you didn't get, that relationship that ended, that path you thought was right, God saw something you couldn't see. He knew the struggles, the pain, and the consequences that would have come from walking through that door. And because he loves you, he closed it. When we face a closed door, our natural response is frustration. We ask, why, God? Why did you take this away? Why didn't you let this happen? But what we fail to recognize is that what looks like a setback is actually a setup for something greater. God does not withhold blessings. Instead, he works to align your life with his perfect will. And sometimes that means saying no to what you thought you wanted so he can say yes to what you truly need. Reflect on those times in your life when you longed for something only to later realize that it wasn't right for you. Perhaps you sought a specific job, but God had something better in store. Maybe you fought for a relationship that ended, only to later thank God for removing it from your life. Perhaps a dream you had didn't come true, only for you to discover that God had a different calling. In that moment you couldn't understand, but looking back you now see that his ways were higher than yours. The Bible says in Isaiah 55:8-9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." This means that even when you don't understand, even when it seems unfair, and even when the door you desperately wanted remains closed, God is still working. He is still guiding. He is still leading you toward the door that is meant for you. There is something profoundly powerful about trusting God when facing a closed door. It requires faith. It requires surrender. It requires believing that what lies behind you was never meant for you, and what lies ahead is far greater than you can imagine. The enemy wants to fill you with discouragement when a door closes. He wants you to believe that God has forgotten you. But the truth is, a closed door is often a divine redirection. When you begin to view closed doors not as disappointments but as blessings, everything shifts. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you start asking, "God, what are you preparing me for?" Instead of feeling rejected, you start to feel protected. Instead of worrying about what didn't work out, you begin trusting that what lies ahead is part of God's perfect plan. The doors that God opens, no one can close. And the doors that God shuts, no one can open. That means if he closed it, no force in this world could have kept it open. And if he is leading you away from it, it's because he has something better in store. When you fully surrender to his plan, when you stop fighting to open what he has shut, you will begin to see his hand guiding you in ways you never expected. There is no such thing as a wasted season when you walk with God. Every closed door brings you a step closer to the one God has set aside for you. Every no is guiding you toward the right yes. Every delay is molding you, preparing you, and refining you for the moment when the right door opens. Instead of mourning over what didn't happen, begin to expect what God is about to do. Because he never closes a door without purpose. And he never leads you away from something without taking you towards something better. Faith and fear cannot coexist in your heart. One will always push the other out. When fear takes hold, faith begins to weaken. But when faith rises, fear has no choice but to depart. The world is full of uncertainty, trials, and moments that shake us to our core. But in the midst of it all, we are faced with a choice: to walk by faith or to live in fear. Fear is one of the most powerful tools the enemy uses to bind us. Fear whispers, "What if you fail? What if God doesn't show up? What if things fall apart?" Fear magnifies the problems and makes you forget the power of God. It clouds your judgment, robs your peace, and keeps you stuck. But faith does the opposite. Faith reminds you that God is bigger than any challenge, that he is with you no matter what you face, that he will never leave you or forsake you. Faith empowers you to take the next step, even when you can't see the entire path ahead. The Bible tells us in 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." This means fear is not from God. It is a weapon of the enemy, designed to distract you from trusting the one who holds your future. God has given you something far greater: his power, his love, and his peace. But you must choose to believe it. Fear will always try to convince you that disaster is near. It will keep you awake at night, filling your thoughts with doubt. It will make you question whether God really has a plan for your life. It will paralyze you, keeping you trapped in worry about tomorrow instead of walking confidently in faith today. But faith says, "I may not know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future." Faith says, "Even when I can't see it, I trust that God is working." Faith says, I will not be shaken because my foundation is in the Lord. Think about Peter. When he stepped out of the boat and walked on the water, as long as his eyes were fixed on Jesus, he walked in faith and did the impossible. But the moment he looked at the wind, the moment he focused on the storm rather than the Savior, fear overtook him and he began to sink. This is exactly what happens in our lives. As long as we keep our focus on God, we can walk with confidence, boldness, and strength. But the moment we shift our focus to the problems, the uncertainties, and the what-ifs, fear takes hold and we begin to sink. Faith is not about ignoring the storm. It's not about pretending the difficulties aren't there. Faith is choosing to trust God despite the storm. It is standing firm in the face of fear and declaring, my God is greater. It is believing that God will make a way even when there appears to be no way. It is understanding that even in the valley, even in the waiting, even when things don't go as planned, He remains in control. The enemy will try to shake your faith with fear, but you must stand strong. The moment you release fear and hold on to faith, your perspective will shift. You'll begin to see that God is fighting on your behalf. You'll recognize that your battle is not yours to fight. It belongs to the Lord. You'll realize that no weapon formed against you will succeed because you are covered by the hand of God. Every significant move of God in the Bible required faith. When Moses stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind him, fear whispered, there's no way out, but faith declared, stand still and witness the salvation of the Lord. When David faced Goliath, fear said, you're too small, too weak, but faith proclaimed the battle is the Lord's. When the walls of Jericho loomed before Joshua and his army, fear said, this is impossible, but faith responded, God has already granted us victory. The same God who parted the sea, who brought down giants, who crumbled the walls, is the same God with you today. He has not changed. His power remains unshaken. His promises are still true. But you must make a choice. Will you let fear dominate your heart, or will you choose faith? The moment you decide to trust God, no matter the circumstance, fear loses its grip, and when fear loses its grip, nothing can hinder what God is about to do in your life. There are times in life when we pray, wait, and believe, yet nothing seems to happen. We wonder why God hasn't answered, why the breakthrough hasn't come, why the door is still shut. We look around and see others moving forward, stepping into their blessings, and we ask, God, when will it be my turn? But what we need to understand is that God's timing is always perfect. He is never late, never early. He acts precisely when He intends to, and His plan is always far greater than anything we could ever imagine. Waiting is one of the hardest things to do, especially when there's no visible progress. The human heart desires things now. We crave instant results, immediate solutions, and quick answers. But God doesn't follow our schedules. He is not bound by our clocks or deadlines. He works according to His divine plan, a plan that takes into account every detail, every situation, and every purpose He has for your life. What might seem like a delay to you is not a delay to God. He is always working even when you cannot see it. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:11, He has made everything beautiful in its time. This means that there is a set time for everything in your life. The blessing you're waiting for, the answer to your prayers, the opportunity you've been believing for. It will come at the precise moment God has planned. Not a second too early, not a second too late. When the time is right, nothing will stand in His way. Consider Joseph. He had a dream that one day he would become a ruler, that God had a magnificent destiny for him. But instead of immediately stepping into that promise, he was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. Year after year he waited. Year after year things seemed to remain unchanged. If Joseph had looked at his circumstances through earthly eyes, he might have thought that God had forgotten him. But what he couldn't see was that God was preparing him. Every challenge, every delay, every setback was shaping him for the moment when he would rise to the position God had promised. And when the time came, in a single moment, Joseph went from the prison to the palace. That is how God operates. What seems like a delay is often preparation. What feels like silence is often God working behind the scenes. When you feel like nothing is happening, he is aligning people, situations, and opportunities in ways you cannot yet perceive. If he gave you what you desire too soon, it might overwhelm you. If he opened the door before you were ready, you might not be able to handle the responsibility that comes with it. God knows exactly what you need and when you are ready to receive it. Abraham was promised that he would become the father of many nations. Yet years passed without a child. He and Sarah grew older, and still the promise had not come to fruition. But when the right time came, God fulfilled his word. Sarah bore Isaac, and through that child, the promise carried on for generations. Had they given up during the waiting, they would have missed the miracle. When we try to rush ahead of God, we often end up creating unnecessary challenges for ourselves. We try to force open doors, manipulate situations, and make things happen in our own strength. But what God opens, no one can close, and what he closes, no one can open. If a door hasn't opened yet, if an answer hasn't come, it's because it's not the appointed time. When that time comes, you won't have to struggle. You won't need to force it. It will unfold effortlessly through his hand. Isaiah 16:22 says, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. That is a promise you can hold on to. You don't need to worry. You don't need to strive. You don't have to be anxious about what lies ahead. What God has spoken over your life will come to pass. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter what obstacles appear. It doesn't matter what others say. His word is always true. So if you're waiting right now, don't be discouraged. Waiting does not equate to denial. A delay does not mean that God has forgotten you. His ways are far beyond yours. His thoughts surpass what you can comprehend. And when the right moment arrives, he will move in a way that will leave no doubt it was his hand at work. Continue trusting, continue believing, and know that he is never late. His timing is always perfect. Life is full of choices. Each day we face decisions, some small, some that change the course of our lives. We wonder which path to follow, which door to walk through, and which opportunity is the right one. In a world that constantly urges us to follow our hearts, chase our dreams, and do what feels right, it's easy to become lost. But the reality is that our understanding is limited. Our emotions can lead us astray. Our desires can cloud our judgment. And if we rely solely on our own insight, we risk walking down a path that was never meant for us. This is why we must seek his will. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. This means we are not meant to figure everything out on our own. We are not called to depend on our own wisdom or follow the ways of the world. We are called to trust, submit, and seek his will above everything else. When we do this, he will guide us. He will make the path clear. He will open the right doors and close the wrong ones. Seeking God's will is not about asking him to bless what we've already decided to do. It's about surrendering our plans, ambitions, and desires and saying, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. It's acknowledging that his ways are higher, that he sees what we cannot, and that he knows what's best for us, even when we don't understand. It requires humility. It demands patience. It calls for a willingness to let go of what we think is right and trust that he will lead us to what truly is. Too often we make decisions based on what appears good in the moment. We chase after things that seem promising, that make sense to our minds, that align with our personal goals. But just because something looks good doesn't mean it is God's will. Not every opportunity comes from him. Not every open door is meant to be walked through. The enemy knows how to present things in a way that seems appealing, that speaks to our desires, that looks like a blessing, but if it's not in line with God's plan, it will ultimately lead to disappointment. That's why we cannot trust our own understanding. We must seek him first. God's will is revealed to those who earnestly seek him, not just in times of crisis, but daily. When we spend time in prayer, when we meditate on his word, when we listen for his voice, he starts to shape our hearts. He aligns our desires with his purpose. He removes what is not from him and fills us with what is. But if we are too preoccupied with our own plans, too focused on our agenda, we risk missing the direction he's trying to give us. There are times when God's will doesn't make sense in the moment. He might ask you to let go of something you thought was right. He might ask you to wait when you're eager to move forward. He might lead you down a path that feels uncertain, but seeking his will means trusting that even when you don't understand, he's guiding you to something greater. It means believing that his timing is perfect, that his plans are for your good, and that he is weaving everything together in ways you can't yet see. Seeking God's will is not a one-time decision. It is a daily commitment. It is waking up each morning and saying, Lord, guide my steps today. Lead me where you want me to go. Close the doors that aren't from you and open the ones that align with your purpose. It's not always easy, and it doesn't always come with immediate clarity. But as you continue to seek him, as you continue to surrender, he will make the way clear. He will direct your steps. He will take you exactly where you need to be. Patience is one of the hardest virtues to develop, yet it is one of the most vital qualities in life. We live in a world that thrives on instant results. Everything around us is designed for speed. Fast food, quick success, instant gratification. But the things that truly matter, the things built to last, take time. A solid foundation isn't built in a single moment. A great harvest doesn't come overnight, and God's promises are fulfilled in his perfect timing, not ours. That's why patience is so important. There are times in life when we pray, when we hope, when we believe, and yet nothing seems to change. The waiting period can be challenging, and during those times, impatience can sneak in. We may start to question if God has forgotten us, if he's truly at work, and if the promise will ever come to fruition. But what we must grasp is that delay is not denial. God is never in a rush, yet he is always perfectly on time. What he has promised will come to pass, but it will unfold in his way, in his timing, and according to his will. James 1:04 reminds us, let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. This means patience isn't just about waiting, it's about what takes place during the waiting. God uses these waiting times to refine us, to build our strength, and to prepare us for what lies ahead. If we try to speed up the process, we risk stepping into situations before we're ready. If we try to force things to happen in our own strength, we end up carrying burdens we were never meant to bear. But when we let patience do its work, when we trust in God's perfect timing, we grow. We become stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in faith. Abraham received a promise that he would become the father of many nations. But years passed without a child. He and Sarah grew older, and still the promise hadn't been realized. In their impatience, they took matters into their own hands, and Ishmael was born. But Ishmael wasn't the promised child. He was the result of human impatience, and that one decision brought struggle and conflict for generations. But when the time was right, according to God's perfect plan, Isaac was born. The promise was fulfilled not through human effort, but through waiting on God's divine timing. Many people miss out on God's best because they refuse to wait. They settle for less than what He has prepared for them. They rush into relationships, take shortcuts, and step outside His will, thinking that God is taking too long. But God's blessings are always worth the wait. What He has planned is far greater than anything we could build on our own. Impatience might bring immediate results, but it will never compare to the blessings God has for those who trust Him. Patience is not passive, it is active trust. It's believing that even when progress isn't visible, God is working. It's standing firm when the road seems long. It's staying faithful when things don't happen according to your own timeline. The enemy wants to stir up impatience because he knows that impatience leads to poor choices. He wants you to believe that if God hasn't moved yet, He never will. But the truth is, God is not only preparing the blessing, He's preparing you to receive it. Waiting is never wasted time. Every moment of patience is a moment in which God is refining your character, strengthening your faith, and positioning you for what's to come. The mightiest trees take years to grow. The greatest leaders are forged through seasons of waiting. The most impactful testimonies come from those who trusted God even when it appeared nothing was happening. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading the Israelites out of Egypt. David was anointed as king, yet he had to wait years before taking the throne. Joseph received a dream, but before stepping into his destiny, he endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Each of these men could have given up during their waiting seasons. They could have let impatience push them away from God's plan. But they held on, they trusted, and when the time was right, God fulfilled His promises in ways beyond their wildest imagination. There is a reason for the waiting. There is a purpose in the delay. What God has in store for you will come to pass, but it will unfold in His time, in His way, and for His glory. Patience is vital because without it, we miss out on the full measure of what He wants to accomplish in our lives. Prayer is one of the most powerful forces we have. It's not merely a ritual, nor just words spoken into the air. It's a direct connection to the Creator of the universe. It's the key that opens doors, the weapon that overcomes the enemy, and the bridge that brings heaven's power into our earthly situations. When you pray, you're not talking to an empty sky. You are speaking to the God who holds all authority, the one who created everything, the one who can do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. That's why prayer moves mountains. There are moments in life when we face obstacles that seem insurmountable, problems that feel too large, battles that seem too fierce, and circumstances that seem impossible to change. In those moments, the enemy wants you to believe that there's no hope, that nothing will change, and that you're stuck. But Jesus said in Matthew 17:20, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. That is the power of prayer. It's not about how big the mountain is. It's about how big your God is. When you pray, you are not relying on your own strength. You are inviting God into your situation. You are surrendering the burden to the one who is able to carry it. You are declaring that even when things seem impossible, you trust the God who makes all things possible. Mountains move not because of human effort, not because of fear or worry, but because of faith-filled prayer. Think about the battles in the Bible that were won through prayer. When the Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army, Moses cried out to God, and the waters parted. When Joshua faced the walls of Jericho, he didn't attack them on his own. He followed God's instructions, marched around them, and after prayer and obedience, the walls came down. When Elijah confronted the prophets of Baal, he did not depend on human tactics. He prayed and fire fell from heaven. Time and again, the impossible became possible when God's people prayed. Prayer is not a last resort. Too often, people view prayer as something to do when nothing else works. They try to fix things by themselves, and when all fails, they turn to God as a final option. But prayer should be the first step, not the last. The moment a challenge arises, when fear tries to creep in, when uncertainty surrounds you, that is the moment to pray. Because when you pray, God moves. There is no mountain too high for God, no illness too great, no financial burden too heavy, no relationship too broken, no challenge too powerful for His strength. But you must choose to trust Him. The enemy wants to discourage you, to make you feel as though your prayers are pointless, that nothing is changing. But the Bible assures us in James 5:16, the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Every time you pray, something happens. Even if you don't see it, even if you don't feel it, God is at work. Prayer is not about forcing God to do your will. It is about aligning yourself with His purpose. It is about surrendering, trusting that He knows what's best, and believing that His plan far exceeds anything you could imagine. There are moments when you pray and the mountain moves instantly. There are moments when God chooses to work in ways you didn't expect. And there are times when you pray, and instead of removing the mountain, God strengthens you to climb it. But in every situation, He remains faithful. The enemy trembles when a believer prays, because he knows that prayer releases the power of heaven into your circumstances. He knows that prayer breaks chains, heals wounds, restores hope, and transforms situations. That's why he tries to keep you distracted, too busy, or too discouraged to pray. He wants you to think that prayer doesn't matter. But the truth is, prayer changes everything. You may be facing an enormous challenge right now. You may have a situation that seems impossible to overcome. But don't give up. Don't let fear take control. Don't let doubt steal your faith. Keep praying. Keep believing, and keep declaring the promises of God, because the same God who created the mountains is the God who has the power to move them. When you call upon His name, He will answer. Through every trial, every season of waiting, every obstacle that seems insurmountable, one truth remains: God is in control. His timing is flawless, His ways are higher, and His plans for your life surpass anything you could ever imagine. When doors close, it's not rejection, it's redirection. When fear seeks to take hold, faith is the answer. When uncertainty clouds your vision, seeking His will is the way forward. And when mountains stand before you, prayer holds the power to move them. Patience is not merely about waiting, it's about trusting. It's about believing that even in the silence, even in the delay, even when nothing seems to change, God is still at work. He is shaping you, preparing you, and strengthening you for what lies ahead. The enemy will try to shake your faith, to fill your heart with doubt, and to convince you that God has forgotten you. But the truth is, God never forgets his promises. He is faithful to complete what he has begun. So do not let fear control you. Do not let impatience push you into decisions that lead you away from his will. Do not let discouragement stop you from praying. Keep seeking him. Keep trusting him. Keep walking in faith, because when the right time comes, he will move. The door will open. The mountain will be removed. The breakthrough will come. And when it does, you will look back and see that every delay, every trial, every unanswered question was part of a greater plan. A plan crafted by the hands of a loving Father who makes no mistake. God's plan goes beyond our understanding, yet we often struggle to accept this truth. We desire to comprehend everything, to see the full picture, and to make sense of every twist and turn in our lives. But the reality is that our minds are limited. We only see what is immediately before us, while God sees both the beginning and the end. He works in ways that are beyond our comprehension, arranging every detail and aligning each moment to fulfill his divine purpose. How often do we question God when life takes an unexpected turn? We ask, why is this happening to me? Why did this opportunity close? Why did this door shut? In those times it may feel like God has forsaken us, but the truth is he is always at work. What we perceive as a setback is often God set up for something much greater. What we view as a delay is God positioning us for his perfect timing. Consider the stories from the past where God's plan was misunderstood. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. If anyone had a reason to doubt God's plan, it was him. But what Joseph couldn't see in those moments was that God was elevating him to a position of great influence. Years later, the very brothers who had betrayed him came to him for help during a famine. Joseph was perfectly positioned to save an entire nation, not because his journey was easy, but because God's plan was far grander than his suffering. He later told his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." The same is true for us. We experience pain, disappointment, and confusion, but God is weaving together a master plan, one that we may not fully understand until later. Sometimes what we perceive as unanswered prayers are actually God's greatest acts of mercy. He may withhold something because he knows it would harm us. He may close a door because walking through it would lead us away from his will. How many times have we longed for something only to see later that it wasn't meant for us? Perhaps you prayed for a relationship to work out, but in hindsight, you realize how it would have caused heartache. Maybe you asked for a specific job only to see that God had something far better in store for you. His plan is never meant to harm us, but to give us hope and a future. Still, despite this truth, we often struggle with trust. We want to control the situation, plan our own paths, and make things happen according to our own timetable. But each time we try to control the outcome, we end up exhausted, frustrated, and disappointed. That's because we were never meant to carry that burden. God calls us to trust in him, to surrender our own plans, and to believe that he is working even when we can't see it. There are times in life when everything feels confusing, when the pain seems unbearable, when the loss is too great, and when our prayers appear unanswered. Yet, even in those moments, God is not distant. He is right there in the storm, guiding, shaping, and refining us. What seems like chaos to us is under his perfect control. We may never fully comprehend why things unfold the way they do, but faith requires us to trust even when we don't have all the answers. It means believing that God is good even when life is hard. It's recognizing that his ways are higher, his thoughts are greater, and his plan is always for our ultimate good. Fear is one of the greatest challenges to faith. It sneaks into our thoughts, planting seeds of doubt making us question God's promises and stopping us from stepping into His plan. Fear tells us we aren't strong enough, worthy enough, or capable enough. It amplifies our problems and diminishes God's power. But faith calls us to rise above. Faith is the steadfast trust in God, even when the odds seem impossible, the path uncertain, or when fear threatens to overwhelm us. Throughout history, there's been an ongoing battle between faith and fear. When God called Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was filled with fear. He looked at his own limitations and asked, "Who am I to go?" He doubted his ability to speak and feared the opposition, but God wasn't asking Moses to depend on himself. He was asking him to trust in Him. He said, "I will be with you," and that same promise holds true for us today. Fear forces us to focus on ourselves, our weaknesses, our limitations, and our flaws. But faith redirects our focus to God, His strength, His sufficiency. Fear thrives on uncertainty. It tells us that if we don't have all the answers, if we can't see the path ahead, then we should be afraid. But faith reminds us that we don't need to know every detail because we trust in the one who does. We don't have to have everything figured out to move forward. Faith is stepping out even when we don't see the whole picture. It's believing in God's plan even when our current circumstances don't match our expectations. Consider Peter walking on water. As long as his gaze was on Jesus, he was able to do the impossible. But the moment he shifted his focus to the wind and the waves, fear took hold and he started to sink. That's what happens when fear takes the lead. We drown in worry, doubt, and hopelessness. Fear makes us forget who God is. It makes us forget that the same God who parted the Red Sea, shut the mouths of lions, and raised the dead is the same God who walks with us today. Fear seeks to keep us trapped. It urges us to play it safe, stay where we are, and avoid taking risks. But faith calls us to step out, trust that God will provide, and believe that He will make a way even when we can't see one. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's choosing to trust God despite fear. It's saying, I may not understand, but I believe. I may not see the way forward, but I trust. I may feel afraid, but I won't let fear control me. Fear drains us, but faith fills us with courage. Fear causes doubt, but faith moves us forward. Every time we choose faith over fear, we grow stronger. We start to realize that God is faithful, that He never fails, and that He is with us through every battle. Life will always present opportunities for fear. The enemy will continually try to discourage, intimidate, and make us question God's promises. But faith stands firm. Faith says, my God is bigger than this storm. My God is greater than this challenge. My God has never failed, and He won't start now. Trials are an inevitable part of life. Everyone faces hardship, pain, and struggles that challenge us deeply. But what many don't realize is that God is always working in those struggles. He doesn't waste suffering. He doesn't allow pain without purpose. Every challenge, every hardship, and every moment of uncertainty is an opportunity for God to mold us, strengthen us, and draw us closer to Him. When we face trials, our first instinct is often to ask, why? Why did this happen to me? Why did I lose my job? Why did this relationship fall apart? Why is my health failing? But asking why will never bring peace. The real question isn't why, but who. Who is in control? Who is holding our lives in His hands? Who is using this hardship for something greater? When we shift our focus from our suffering to the one who is sovereign over it, we begin to see our trials in a new light. We understand that God is not punishing us. He is preparing us. He is refining us like gold, burning away impurities, shaping us into the people He created us to be. Consider the lives of those who trusted God during their trials. Job lost everything, his wealth, his family, his health, but he didn't turn away from God. He didn't understand what was happening, but he held on. In the end, God restored him and blessed him beyond what he had before. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned, yet he remained faithful. He didn't let his suffering make him bitter, and he didn't allow his trials to define him. Because of that, God elevated him to a position of power in Egypt, using him to save many lives. There's a reason why suffering often leads to the most powerful testimonies. It is during the fire that our faith is tested, and it is through the storm that our trust in God grows. In the valley, we learn to fully depend on Him. When everything is going smoothly, it's easy to say that we have faith. But true faith is revealed when everything falls apart. Will we still trust God when the answer is delayed? Will we continue to believe in His goodness when we can't see a way out? Will we keep holding on when we feel weak, abandoned, or broken? Trials have a way of stripping away our self-dependence. They show us just how little control we have. We can plan, prepare, and try to secure our future, but in an instant, everything can change. In those moments, we realize that our strength isn't enough, our wisdom isn't enough, and our resources aren't enough. Only God is enough. Often we pray for deliverance, and God doesn't immediately remove the trial. That doesn't mean He's not listening. Sometimes He allows us to walk through the fire because something within us needs refining. There's a lesson to be learned, a deeper trust to be built, and a higher purpose to be fulfilled. The trials we face today may be the very things preparing us for the calling God has placed on our lives. We may not understand the reasons for our struggles in the moment, but God is always at work. He's shaping our character, building our faith, and teaching us endurance. The same God who walked with Moses through the wilderness, strengthened David in the cave, and sustained Paul in prison, is the same God who walks with us in our struggles today. We live in a world that values speed. Everything around us pressures us to move faster, achieve more, and get what we want instantly. Waiting feels uncomfortable. It feels like a waste of time. When we pray, we expect quick answers. When we work hard, we want immediate results. But God doesn't follow human timelines. His ways are higher than ours, and His timing is always perfect. What may seem like a delay is often divine preparation. What feels like a setback is often God aligning things for something greater. There are moments in life when we wonder if God is even listening. We pray, we wait, and nothing seems to change. Doors remain closed, and the breakthrough we long for feels out of reach. In these moments of silence, doubt can creep in. We begin to question if we misheard God, if we're on the wrong path, or if He has forgotten us. But God's silence doesn't mean He is absent. Just because we don't see immediate movement doesn't mean He isn't working. Consider the life of Abraham. God had promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations. Yet for years, he and his wife Sarah remained childless. As time passed, their faith was put to the test. Sarah, growing weary of waiting, urged Abraham to take matters into his own hands, which led to complications that could have been avoided. But God never forgot His promise. At the appointed time when it seemed impossible, Sarah gave birth to Isaac. It didn't happen according to their own timeline, but it occurred in God's perfect timing. And when God fulfills His promises, He does so in a way that leaves no room for doubt. It's clear that His hand is at work. Divine timing requires us to trust. It calls for the surrender of our need to control things and to submit to the one who sees the bigger picture. We might think we're ready for what we're praying for, but God knows when the right time has come. A door opened too soon can be just as harmful as one that never opens. Sometimes God withholds something, not as punishment, but as a means of protection. He knows what we don't know. He sees what we cannot see. Joseph, who dreamed of greatness, didn't step into leadership right away. Instead, he was thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, and wrongfully imprisoned. From an outside perspective, it appeared as though his life was heading in the wrong direction, but God was preparing him for something far greater. Every trial, every delay, every moment of waiting was shaping him into the man who would one day rule Egypt and save an entire nation. Had Joseph been elevated too soon, he would not have been ready. The waiting season was a crucial part of fulfilling God's plan. Waiting is not wasted time. It is a period of refinement, a time when God works behind the scenes, arranging everything according to His will. It is in these moments of waiting that He strengthens our faith, deepens our trust, and prepares us for what's to come. If we rush ahead of God, we risk missing His best for us. If we grow impatient and attempt to force things, we might end up with something far less than His perfect plan. God is never early, nor is He ever late. He is always on time. The same God who created the universe with precision and order is the one who is orchestrating the details of our lives. What we may perceive as a delay is often God's divine alignment, and what feels like an unanswered prayer could simply be His not yet. His plans for us are always good, and when the time is right, nothing can prevent them from coming to pass. Peace is something that the world desperately seeks but seldom finds. People search for it in money, success, relationships, and temporary pleasures. Yet true peace doesn't come from external circumstances. It's not found in a perfect life, free from trouble, or in everything going exactly as we planned. True peace comes from one source, trusting God. When we place our faith in Him, surrendering our fears, anxieties, and doubts, He fills our hearts with a peace that cannot be shaken, peace that transcends all understanding. Trusting God means acknowledging that He is in control, even when life feels chaotic. It means choosing to depend on His wisdom instead of our own, and resting in His promises rather than being overwhelmed by our worries. The world urges us to take charge, solve our problems alone, and figure things out by ourselves. But that's not what God calls us to do. He asks us to trust Him, lean not on our own understanding, and cast our cares upon Him. When we do, He grants us peace. One of the biggest challenges we face is the battle within our minds. Anxiety, doubt, and fear attempt to overwhelm us, planting lies that God has forgotten about us, that He won't come through, and that we must handle everything on our own. But faith silences these voices. Trust in God shuts down fear. The more we trust, the more we release control, and the more peace fills our heart. Consider the storms of life. When the disciples were caught in a fierce storm on the sea, they were terrified. The winds howled, the waves crashed, and they feared for their lives. But where was Jesus? Asleep in the boat. He wasn't anxious. He wasn't worried. He knew the storm had no power over Him. And when He rose and spoke, the wind and waves obeyed Him. That's the kind of peace that comes from trusting God. Even when the world is in turmoil, when life's storms rage, we can rest because we know who is truly in control. Trusting God doesn't mean we won't face challenges. It doesn't guarantee that life will always be easy or that we won't experience pain, but it does mean that no matter what happens, we have an unshakable foundation. It means that even when life doesn't go according to our plans, we don't have to live in fear because we trust that God is working everything out for our good. Worry is the enemy of peace. It keeps us restless, fixated on what might go wrong, what's beyond our control, and what could happen. But Jesus tells us not to worry. He reminds us that God takes care of the birds of the air and clothes the flowers in the field. And if He cares for them, how much more will He care for us? Worry changes nothing. It doesn't solve problems, prevent difficulties, or improve life. But trust in God brings peace. It allows us to breathe, to rest, to stop striving, and simply believe that He is faithful. Some of the most peaceful individuals aren't necessarily those who've had an easy life, but those who have learned to trust God in every circumstance. They've faced hardships, weathered storms, and endured suffering, yet they remain unshaken. Their peace doesn't stem from their situation, but from their unwavering faith. They understand that no matter what happens, God is still good, still in control, and will never fail them. Peace isn't found in having all the answers or in perfect plans. It's found in surrender. It's about releasing our fears, worries, and doubts and saying, God, I trust you. And when we do, He fills our hearts with a peace that no storm, trial, or trouble can take away. From the beginning, God has proven Himself as a promise-keeping God. Every word He has spoken, every covenant He's made, and every assurance He's given is secure. His promises are not like human words, subject to change or failure. They are steadfast, dependable, and unbreakable. When God speaks, His word does not return empty. What He promises, He will fulfill. What He declares, He will bring to fruition. There is no uncertainty in His nature, and His faithfulness is unwavering. Life often challenges our trust in God's promises. When we face trials, experience delays, or encounter situations that seem to contradict what God has said, doubt can creep in. We might wonder if we misunderstood His word, if God changed His mind, or if His promises were meant for someone else. But God is not a man that He should lie, nor a son of man that He should change His mind. His promises are true and enduring. If He said it, it will come to pass, no matter how impossible it seems. Throughout the Bible, God has proven Himself faithful. When He promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, the circumstances seemed hopeless. Abraham and Sarah were beyond childbearing age, but God's promise wasn't limited by human constraints. Despite all odds, Isaac was born. When God promised the Israelites a land flowing with milk and honey, they wandered in the wilderness for years. Yet His promise stood true, and He brought them to the promised land at the right time. The timing of God's promises often doesn't match our expectations. We live in a world of instant gratification where waiting feels burdensome. But God's promises are fulfilled in His perfect timing, not ours. What appears to be a delay is often God's preparation. Sometimes He withholds what we asked for right away because He's refining our character and positioning us for what lies ahead and ensuring we're ready to receive what He's planned. If we were to receive His blessings before we were prepared, we might not be able to handle them well. The waiting season is not a rejection. Rather, it's God's way of preparing us so that when His promise comes to fruition, we are ready to receive it. God's promises are not determined by our circumstances. The world around us may change, people may disappoint us, and plans may fall apart, but God remains constant. His word stands firm no matter what we see or feel. When He promises peace, He gives it, even in the midst of life's storms. When he promises provision, he provides for us even when resources are scarce. When he promises strength, he carries us through, especially in our weakest moment. His promises are not based on our own abilities, but are grounded in his unchanging nature. Faith is the key to standing firm on God's promises. When the enemy attempts to plant seeds of doubt, when life's challenges try to shake our confidence, we must cling to what God has said. Faith doesn't require us to see the outcome before believing. It calls us to trust even when we cannot yet see the evidence. The same God who fulfills his promises to Abraham, Moses, David, and countless others is the same God who will remain faithful to us. God has promised never to leave us or abandon us. He has promised to work everything together for our good. He has promised to be our refuge, our strength, our provider, and our healer. He has promised eternal life through his Son, Jesus Christ. These promises are not just words, they are eternal truths that cannot be broken. No power in heaven or on earth can stop what God has declared. No force can undo what he has ordained. His promises are a foundation that cannot be shaken, a rock that endures through every storm. Even when we are unfaithful, God stays faithful. Even when we fall short, his promises remain. The same God who has never failed in the past will not fail now. His word is true, his faithfulness is everlasting, and his promises are unbreakable. From the moment of your creation, God had a purpose for your life. You are not a mistake nor a product of chance. Before you even took your first breath, before anyone knew your name, God had already written a plan for you. He formed you with intention, with divine purpose, and with a calling that only you can fulfill. No matter your background or the challenges you've faced, your life has meaning because the one who created you does not make mistakes. Many people question their significance, wondering if they matter at all. The enemy tries to convince you that you have no purpose, that you are simply existing, that your life amounts to nothing. But that is a lie. God's word assures us that you were created with purpose, that you were designed with a destiny in mind, and that there is a unique work that God has prepared for you. You are made in his image, given gifts and talents that are uniquely yours, and placed here at this moment in history for a purpose far greater than yourself. Purpose is not defined by position, fame, or wealth. It is not about how the world measures success. Rather, it is about answering the calling God has placed on your life. Some are called to lead, others to serve, some to encourage, some to teach, and some to create. But no matter the role, all are called to glorify God in everything they do. Whether you're raising a family, working in a job, building a ministry, or serving in ways that go unnoticed, your life has purpose and makes an impact. God does not evaluate success in the same way the world does. He looks at faithfulness, obedience, and a heart that says, "Here I am, Lord, use me." The enemy will try to distract you, sow seeds of doubt, and convince you that your life has no significance. He will use discouragement, comparison, and fear to try to make you pull back. But remember, your purpose is not dictated by your emotions or your circumstance. It is determined by the God who created you. He has called you by name, set you apart, and equipped you with everything you need to fulfill the calling he has given you. You may not yet see the entire picture, but God does. Every experience, every hardship, and every lesson has been preparing you for what is to come. Nothing in your life has been wasted, not even the pain, the struggles, or the moments you wish had never happened. God is using everything in your life. He is weaving together a narrative far beyond what you can comprehend, working all things for your good and preparing you for the purpose he has placed within you. When you seek God, he will lead you. When you surrender to him, he will open the right doors. When you trust him, he will guide you step by step. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to know every detail. What's important is being willing and available to say, Lord, whatever you have for me, I will follow. No one else can fulfill the unique assignment God has given you. No one else with your exact gifts, experiences, or calling. That's why your life is significant. That's why you can't give up, settle, or believe the lie that you have no purpose. God has placed something inside you that the world needs. He has equipped you for something greater than you may realize. He has chosen you, called you, and set you apart for this moment. No matter where you are in life, no matter what challenges you faced, and no matter how uncertain the road ahead seems, stand firm in this truth. God has a plan for you. His timing is perfect. His promises are unbreakable, and He is using every trial to shape you for His purpose. When you trust Him, surrender your fears, and walk by faith, He grants you peace that the world cannot take away. You were created with purpose. Your life has meaning. Every season, every moment, and every experience is part of the greatest story that God is writing. You don't have to have all the answers or know every step of the journey. You only need to trust the one who holds your future in His hands. He is faithful. He is good. And when you walk in His purpose, when you embrace His plan, you'll discover that His ways are higher, His love is greater, and His calling on your life is beyond what you could ever imagine.